Welcome into the New Orleans Saints podcast, presented by SeatGeek. You'll hear from players, coaches, broadcasters, and writers that cover the NFL on a daily basis. The New Orleans Saints podcast starts right now. Here's your host, Erin Summers.
Welcome into the New Orleans Saints podcast. Erin Summers here. We continue our draft preview podcast today with a look at the defensive line prospects. But before we get to that, we have to pay tribute to one of the best offensive linemen to play here. Former Saints offensive tackle Terron Armstead, who announced his retirement from the NFL Saturday. Armstead played 12 seasons, 9 with the Saints after being drafted in 2013. He was a 3-time Pro Bowler with the Saints from 2018 to 2020 and spent the last 3 seasons with the Dolphins, where he added 2 more Pro Bowl selections. Armstead made the announcement at a party held in Miami Saturday night with Saints defensive end Cam Jordan and legend Drew Brees in attendance. Brees issued this statement on his playing time with Armstead. I remember when Terron Armstead first came into our locker room in 2013. He did not start immediately, but it would become evident to all that first year that he was going to be a starting left tackle in our league for a very long time. Not only did that combination of size, speed, strength, and athleticism take over, but also the knowledge, leadership, and sacrifice he brought to that offensive line and to our entire team elevated everything we did on and off the field. I could not have asked for more from a teammate for the 8 years we were together, whom I am also proud to call a friend. For more from current Saints players on what Armstead meant to them and their career, you can head to NewOrleansSaints.com. For today's guest, we are bringing in former Saints defensive lineman Leroy Glover to talk about the D-line prospects in this upcoming draft. Glover is currently the D-line coach for the St. Louis Battlehawks of the UFL. Leroy, thank you so much for taking the time to join me on the New Orleans Saints podcast. It's always good to have you here. How are you?
All is well. Things are good. I cannot complain. Just excited about the draft.
I'm looking forward to it as well. There's been a lot of excitement around here with the coaching changes. Looks like we might have a couple different schemes on both sides of the ball, but especially defensively, as a defensive lineman here, one of the best. What are you expecting from the Saints under the new defensive coordinator, Brandon Staley?
I think what you'll see from the new staff and the new look of the New Orleans Saints defense is just a big emphasis on athletic size, guys that can really penetrate, get into the backfield, similar to what you're going to see it from, this is a copycat league. So you're going to try to see some of the duplicates of what the Philadelphia Eagles were trying to do there when they won the Super Bowl, with just a very, very dominant front four, allowing them to rush and playing very solid coverage on the back end.
How much different is a 3-4 versus a 4-3? Because that's been what everybody's been talking about, is Staley's style, having those 3 guys up front.
Yeah, the biggest difference, I think, in my opinion, in a 3-4 or 4-3 is trying to find outside linebackers. Traditionally, finding outside linebackers is either guys who are undersized or you got to put weight on, who are former safeties, who you move to outside linebacker, or defensive ends in college who have enough athletic ability to drop in coverage. That's the biggest difference between a 3-4 and a 4-3 defense. It's just those outside linebackers and trying to find a good fit and the measurements.
When you look at what the Saints do have here on the line and maybe what the abilities of their linebackers are, what is the biggest need maybe in this draft for them in regards to the defense?
I think the biggest need right now is probably going to be finding some depth. I think we had a phenomenal year by Breezy. I mean, Breezy had a fantastic season with 7.5 sacks. I think you got to get younger at the defensive end position. We've got some talented players at that position, but age is creeping in there. And then those guys behind them, who's going to be the depth at some of those positions as well? That's going to be kind of the questions that need to be answered through the draft.
Okay, so there is an edge that is ranked pretty high coming into the draft in Abdul Carter from Penn State. He says he should go number 1. Looks like it might be a quarterback off the board first. But when you look at his game, why is he possibly a number 1, number 2 pick?
I think when you talk about the tradition of the linebacker position at Penn State, that kind of sets him apart a little bit with all the phenomenal players that have played at that university, at that position, that have gone on to the National Football League. His skill set, quite honestly, is his ability to rush the passer. I mean, he's a phenomenal pass rusher. He's got the size, he's got the length, he's got the attitude and the mentality for it. I think as you watch him a little bit more, the thing you want to see him improve is his body. Is he going to hit the weight room and train to get a little bit bigger? Because these offensive tackles in the National Football League are going to be a little bit larger and more athletic than maybe some of the guys he faced in college.
Yeah, because he is somebody that changed from being a linebacker to more of a defensive end. So the size is different when you're talking about lining up against an NFL offensive tackle out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other kind of kicker for him is his versatility. He may not be the largest, biggest guy on the earth, but at the same time, he can play a lot of different positions for you, specifically on third down.
When you look outside of him, as you kind of get down the rankings for some of these linemen, what are you looking for from an edge versus somebody inside?
Depends on your style. Once again, oftentimes the edge players, you're going to go more on measurables, height, speed, some of those things. How long are the arms? How big are the hands? And that kind of stuff. And then obviously, the other thing they're going to look for in an edge guy is his ability to affect the quarterback. Difference on the inside. Now, the inside guys have to do a little bit of both. They have to be, number one, very good versus the run, be able to use their hands and their feet and together in certain situations, be able to play double teams and power scoops, which is challenging on the professional level. But then also they have to be able to convert to pass in passing situations, which can be a challenge.
For other defensive edges in the draft, you're looking at Tennessee's James Pierce as another highly rated one. Mikael Williams from Georgia. Who do you like outside of Carter?
I think the beauty of this draft is it's so deep at the position that you can fill it in a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different body types. There's a lot of different players. There's a lot of different schemes. The guys that I like have the versatility. The guys from Georgia have been phenomenal. Mikael Williams has been awesome there at Georgia. He's got some versatility. He can play linebacker. He can rush the passer. He can drop in coverage. He can do a lot of different things if you're trying to disguise a player like that in a 3-4 system. And so that's kind of some of the things that you're going to look for from guys like that. And then Jalen Walker as well from Georgia. Georgia seems to always produce just phenomenal football players, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. And so I'm going to look really heavily at those Georgia guys to see if they can make a difference for the Saints defense.
How about Mike Green? He's somebody from Marshall, which is, a school that you don't necessarily circle as a football powerhouse, but they've definitely produced some players over the years. Is he ready for an NFL roster?
I think he is, but only time will tell. What you see when you put on the tape from Mr. Green there is just high energy. His tempo, his pace, the way he approaches the game is just full speed all the time. You think of a guy with the Pittsburgh Steelers, Alex Highsmith, he kind of reminds you of him, and just his ability to play full speed, play in and play out and play with a high motor.
Yeah, he ran a 4.57, which is pretty good.
Very impressive. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Carter was a 4.48, and then James Pierce a 4.47. I think he was the fastest outside edge players that you have in this draft. You go inside the line to maybe defensive tackle with Michigan has a couple players, Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. What are some names that you think are going to get called in the first, second rounds here?
I think Mason Graham is obviously the top of the inside guys, the interior defensive tackle position. His ability to be stout versus the run has been phenomenal. I think the way he once again plays with his hands and just has the agility to beat one-on-one blocks, but also enough to hold up those power scoops, which is going to be critical at the next level. And then his running mate, Kenneth Grant. If you're looking for a guy who's just a large human being, Kenneth Grant is your guy, 6'4", 331 pounds. His motor has been a question, but I don't think that'll be an issue on the next level.
Anybody else that you liked or we haven't touched on that we need to be aware of as we're watching the draft?
I think as you stay in the SEC, Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss is a guy who may not be a large 300-pound plus guy, but does have that agility, does have some of those pass rushing traits that you like from an inside rusher. He's going to be a guy to keep an eye on. And then lastly, Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M. If you're looking just for a pure speed edge rusher, he's your guy.
All right. Well, any of year guys that we might be seeing make the move from UFL to NFL?
Yeah, we have some talented guys on our roster. I mean, we're playing good ball right now. We're 2-0. I think Peter Tinoimo is a guy who's playing good ball for us. Travis Feeney is playing some really good ball for us. And we have another inside defensive tackle, Austin Fiole, who's playing good ball for us as well. And we got to see those guys play even better down the stretch.
Because a lot of these players are getting opportunities during
Absolutely.
the summer, early months here, and then we're finding them on training camp rosters once we get into late summer and fall, and they've done really well. It's been fun to watch. It's a great area for them to continue to develop their game.
And absolutely, you hit it on the head. I mean, the goal for us in the UFL is to try to give more guys an opportunity for the National Football League. It's as simple as that. We're going to coach them hard. We're going to give them all the information that they need to be better ball players. And hopefully, we've had some of those guys too stick with NFL teams. So once again, that's what we're hawking for. That's what we're hunting for. That's what we're trying to have accomplished.
Here with the Saints now, you have a former LSU guy leading the line. What do you think about him and what they can do here?
Yeah, Coach Davis does a phenomenal job. He has NFL experience. He has big-time college-level experience as well. He really, I think, is going to bring more of a tough kind of a run-stuffing presence to the defensive line room. And I'm excited once again to see what he can do. I'm a big fan of his style of coaching.
What does the draft look like for you now? Do you sit down and watch it the whole way through?
I'm still a fan, man. So I still sit down and watch it. I still got mock drafts going. I mean, I kind of geek out a little bit when it comes to draft time. I kind of try to dig into it a little bit because once again, you never know what can happen. And you never know when you potentially down the line could potentially be coaching one of these guys. So it's always exciting.
Yeah, that's true because you're still in it. I mean, you're right there coaching some of these players. So it makes sense. You're probably diving way down. You know a lot more than most of us.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me, Leroy, giving me some info on the line. We look forward to talking to you again and hopefully seeing you around soon.
All right. You guys have a great day.
Thank you. We'll have to continue to follow along with the Battlehawks this season. Great to hear that they're 2-0 to start things off, and got to see how their season plays out. Thanks for tuning in today. We'll be back with another Saints Draft podcast Wednesday. Talk to you then.
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Saints podcast, presented by SeatGeek. Join us 3 times per week on NewOrleansSaints.com, the Saints mobile app, or you can download the podcast on iTunes. We'll see you next time, right here on the New Orleans Saints podcast, presented by SeatGeek.